Hi, and welcome to Kaleidoscience. Here you find answers about cognition that you may or may not have asked yourself. This episode is hosted by Imogen Hüsing and Elisa Palme. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode.
Growing up with cats and sharing my flat with a cat now, I was always fascinated by the question of what might be happening in their brains. Therefore, I'm super excited about our guests in this episode, Sevim Isparta and Freund, with whom we will be talking about cat behavior and especially cat brain structure and cognition. Welcome. Sevim Isparta is a doctor of veterinarian medicine and she did her PhD at Ankara University and was later on afterwards a research assistant at Ruhr University in Bochum in the area of biopsychology and experimental molecular psychiatry. She then held a postdoctoral position at the University of Bari Aldo Muro in the area of animal physiology and behavior, and is now about to begin a new postdoctoral position at the Domestication Lab of the University of Veterinarian Medicine in Vienna, Austria, where she will work on hemispheric asymmetries in canine face perception. Freund started her career at the Ruhr University in Bochum with a study program in biochemistry and did her PhD in biopsychology at the same university. She has previously been a researcher at institutions such as Harvard Medical School and the Karl Eberts University in Tübingen, and now is holding a professorship for experimental and molecular psychiatry at the LWL University Clinic at the Department of Psychiatry, Psychotherapy, and Preventive Medicine. Welcome, and we're really excited to have you here.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and before we get into the scientific part of today's episode, we want to play our usual get to know game with you. So I will give you the beginnings of 5 sentences, and your task is to finish them as spontaneously as possible. And the first sentence is, as a kid, I always wanted to be.
Who of us should start?
You are the professor, please.
Okay.
A nurse for children.
Nurse for children?
Yeah.
Nice.
I was always very curious about science and used to read science magazines, especially about biology and animals. And I always wanted to do something related to science, but for a while I also wanted to be an anarchologist, but I also lost my interest over time. And at some point I also thought about becoming a police officer to catch bad people or going to the sports academy.
Interesting. The second sentence is, if I was an emoji, I would be?
Happy one.
A specific happy one or just?
Well, maybe I'm too old to know all the specific ones. But I know for sure that I want to be a happy one.
Yeah, for me also happy one, but with the tears nearby the eyes, like really smiling one and laughing one.
Nice. The third sentence is, my favorite thing to do on a day off is?
Spend time with my family.
Playing tennis.
Very cool. And the fourth sentence is, right now I'm most fascinated by?
Society.
Anything in particular about society?
I feel a bit like I thought about society a lot after the pandemic and all that changing now. And this, like, before I never had those thoughts, and now I really got into like thinking about all the aspects. And yeah, I guess with all the change that happened in the last couple of years.
Good reply. I should find also something very deep after this reply.
Being spontaneous helps.
Yeah, true. If you are talking from the science-wise, I will say I was most fascinated by people's attention or interest to our research, I will say.
I feel like cats are a good hook because so many people are have connections to cats. So yeah, easy entrance.
Exactly.
All right. And then we come to our last sentence, which is I know it's time to call it a day when.
Often I don't know.
Yeah. I also don't have concrete reply for this, I think.
Sevim is a night owl as well, so I think almost the same for the two of us.
Fair.
I think it's a hard question, especially when you're in research, because then you're usually like, okay, I still have to get that done, and on some days it's quite late, and other days you can quit earlier. So it's there's no specific time. I think our most common answer is when I can't focus on this one sentence I'm trying to read.
Yeah.
And before we start into the topic of today's episode, we also want to talk about your scientific background. So, from your perspective, how you ended up in this research project.
Well, I can tell you that I ended up in this research project all because of Sevim. So for me, it's kind of like, well, it starts when like we met like very randomly when she was doing an internship with my former PhD supervisor. And all I remember is that we had some barbecue event and we needed another barbecue. So I went to my former supervisor's department and asked for barbecue. And somehow Sevim and I ended up going to my lab with the barbecue, and she was really helpful. And I think I even said something like to my people like, oh, I found a new PhD student choking. And then a couple of years later, after that internship, actually we sat together again, like with some people from my former PhD supervisor's lab and Sevim and others, and discussed about her PhD project. So that's how she ended up in my lab. And yeah, and then we did the PhD, like during the project during her PhD together, and we stayed in contact afterwards. And then at some point she approached me and was like, oh, we have this great idea with cats and with other labs, and I think you would be a great fit. Yeah, and so that's how it went for me. And then maybe Sevim can tell you more about the idea and how it started.
Yeah, but you well described. But also you forget that we went to the dinner all together with Honor and other labs, and we also had some guests from Japan, and we met there. It was like a round table, and we were just 6 people, and I was just like a first week of my internship. I also found myself with all the professors and all important people. Yeah, because it was the dinner, and everyone was invited after the talk, and I was very happy to join. And from here I would say all the people who started their scientific career, they should join all the meetings, all the dinners, and all the social events, because it is very important to know people, because after even some years you can say, oh, I know X people, I know these people, because I think it's very important to connect. Yeah, Nadia is totally the correct. And I also remember how we carried the barbecue all the way and it was very fun. Yeah, from the scientific perspective, as you already mentioned, I'm a veterinarian, and I have been always interested in laterality, and I'm working on the different species, rats, cats, and dogs. And after my PhD was done, and I moved to Bari, and during our all discussions with our other colleagues also, um, then we thought, because we really wanted to have an idea about the general literature profile of the cats, not only because of paw preference, but also the tail positioning, how they communicate people, and also their sleeping positions, like the overall general literature patterns, because the cats are um, not that much studied as comparison to dogs. And then we decided to have like a big international researcher group, all together from Canada, Italy, Germany, and Turkey. Then we just started the project, and the interest, maybe Nadia can mention more, because we got the biggest attention from Germany, and we had more than 10,000 participants. And now we are trying to analyze all the videos all together.
Yeah, so you already briefly mentioned that you got video submissions. Maybe we can directly start with what type of videos you're analyzing and where you get your videos from.
We ask the caregivers to record their kids during the different social interactions with their caregivers, and also during some spontaneous behaviors, and they recorded for us, and we also gave them like a short demographical information form, and they are recording the videos, and they are sending us, and now we are analyzing the positioning from the laterality aspect. And also, before we start the citizen science project, we also had like a pilot study with YouTube cat videos, and since the sleeping position is more observable and it's easy to observe, and also we had some good hypotheses about it, because the cats are very special for sleeping behavior. And then we started with that project, and we found the population level, leftward population level bias. Then we continue, and we also would like to um, get into deeper for the sleeping patterns as well. So now we are analyzing the videos for the like a paw preference, like determine the paw preference, also the tail positioning, different contexts, like a different emotional context, how they are using their tails for the communication, and we are also measuring the sleeping patterns of the cats.
Maybe for listeners to get an idea of what the cat owners sent in, because my cat is also somewhere in the data set.
Great.
Could you maybe just briefly explain what kinds of behaviors or paw positions, etc., you were asking for in the videos, so people can get an idea of what type of video material you're analyzing exactly? Because I remember that there were some instructions of, for example, that your cat kind of get into a not quite toy, but get them, for example, a roll of toilet paper with some treats in and film of which paw they're using, etc., like those instructions.
Yeah, so we asked the caregivers to, one thing I remember was they should call their cats and record the cat while they are coming. One position was like just recording the cat while the cat is resting. And then we also asked the caregivers to play a little game with their cats, though they should hide like a treat in something small, like for example, like the roll of toilet paper. So like something where like only one paw would fit in, so that the cat would have to use one paw to reach for the treat, and they should record the cat reaching for the toy.
So you, on the one hand, you asked for videos of certain behaviors, and on the other hand, you also asked for pictures of the cat sleeping and a sleep diary.
Exactly, and we also had some questionnaires, a little bit information about the cats, like sex of the cat, age of the cat, things like that, and then also a little bit of the like the general behavior of the cat, and I think a little bit also interaction of the like.
Yeah, caregiver attachment form we gave. Caregiver attachment we gave, and we had a cat demographic information. And also for the tail positioning, we ask a different context, like approaching and resting, I think, and it should be one more.
You dropped a term in your answer, and that was a citizen science project. Could you briefly explain what citizen science means.
Yeah, so in general, it means that you involve the general public to participate in your science. Yeah, this can be done in like different ways. I've seen projects where they really like invite people to come to the lab and like pipette things or do things. Yeah, and in our case, this was like asking the cat owners like to send these videos and pictures and things of their cats.
What benefits do the citizen science project bring?
Well, I gave a good start with my society answer at the beginning. I already mentioned that I feel like a lot changed since the pandemic. And I also have a feeling that with everything suddenly being so strange and different from what we had known before, the pandemic brought a lot of discussion. And I was a bit scared and I'm worried that also a lot of people, like even in my like my private life, I realized that how hard it is for people to understand science and where they were like why would we have to close schools now? We know it wasn't that bad in schools and like that people had this feeling that even science would like know right away, and it was like the science would give a yes or no answer, and like I had to explain to like parents and so like what's statistics and like that in science we don't get a clear answer of yes or no, but we have a likelihood and all those things, and that really made me aware of we need to teach more what science can tell us and also like what science cannot, and what it does it not mean. And I feel like with project like this, I really hope that people get involved a little bit more in science and learn more what it does. And then at the same time, I hope that with the cats, we maybe get like kids involved and also get like this interest of science and maybe even want to become a scientist later on. Yeah, so I see there are a lot of benefits. I don't know if Sevim, if you want to add to it.
Yeah, the sample size is always higher, and I'm also happy with it in general. Like, because when you do the experiments, of course, you can also have a big, like a large data set. But when the citizens are involved, of course, you will have a larger data set. So this also increase the robustness of the results and the reliability of the results. Of course, there are also some limitations. As already Nadia mentioned, some of them, like it's not always easy to get like a really reliable or valid data points from the people outside of the science. But in general, when you describe perfectly and when you support them, when they are really keen to do, and especially cat owners, and I always prefer to say actually caregivers, but yes, cat owners, are also keen to do it, and they really follow the rules and guidelines, and they are trying their best to provide you the most valuable data set. So it is very nice cooperation, and then of course it is increasing the reliability of the study and the power.
And see, I feel now we already had one example to where it is important to talk and exchange, because by me making this mistake of cat owner, which is just in my vocabulary, I wouldn't think about it. I would always say like cat owners, like why not? But then when Sevim points it out, it's like, yeah, it makes total sense. It's not, the cat is not owned by someone. You should say caregiver. And this is really a process where I learn a lot, where I think about like the role of the caregiver and all that. And I think this was just like a perfect example of why I like talking about science and like talking to people, and why also if you exchange like your thoughts and your viewpoints with like the general public is really helpful.
Yeah, even for me the owner comes first, and you already realize, because as a veterinarian, especially when you are working at the clinic, you are always calling them like a owner. Then it's not easy to even change as a veterinarian. But nowadays we are trying to use the most common and most like the better terminology in general.
Yeah. And just coming back to the videos, I would also assume that having videos in the home environment also changes compared to getting cats in the lab, because cats especially are usually not used to changing environments. Then they're stressed, then they behave differently. So just the recording at home, I guess, will also give you a more realistic usual cat behavior compared to other measurement methods, which you could, for example, use with human participants.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with kids, we really wanted to study at their own environment to avoid any stress-related changes or any bias, because as you said, kids in general don't like to change the environment and their routines. And when you want to really investigate the natural behavior of the cats. Also, it's same for dogs, but in cats, it's I think a little bit more important, because dogs are in general get used to be with their owners, like their caregivers, to go to the clinics or to go to the different environments. But with cats, exactly, this was one of the other reasons that we wanted to do it with as a citizen science project.
I just have one question regarding the videos. How do you analyze them? So do you use a video tagging tool where you kind of track a behavior, or because I've also done video research in my bachelor's thesis, and I remember just using timestamps and describing the behavior on the timestamp. It was in chimpanzee, so I used gestures and specific codes for that. But how are you analyzing the videos you get? Because if you have such a large data set, it must be quite time intense to get the data out of it.
Yeah, very good question. And that's why we cannot talk about results yet, because we really learned that this is very challenging. And yeah, Sevim already mentioned that, like, with citizen science project, there's like a great value, but then there's always like a downside of it. And this was something that we realized, yeah, right at the beginning when we looked at the videos, that due to the asking people to send videos and not having like a lab setting where everything always stays the same, using a tool to analyze the videos computerized is not possible. So we have to do it, yeah, by watching the videos, and this is we're just figuring out, like, dividing the videos between all the groups. Like, we asked like students for help, and we have to figure out if we can maybe like sort them in a way where we they are the same, and then with like sorted videos we can have analyzing tools. But it's not as simple as if we have like a set setting where we would put the cat in like one corner and would have it do something. Then it's like, with now the tools, it's pretty simple, and it's also nice because you don't have the bias of the people watching it. But this is not possible with the videos we got.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. Yeah, for the pop preferences, maybe if I give you a little bit more detail for the pop preferences, we are checking the each manipulation, like a right, left, and there are also formulas at the end. You can use either laterality index or Z score to define the strength of the laterality and also the directional information you can get from it. For the tail based analysis, as you said, we also use some tracking programs, but as Nadia already mentioned, we have to do it manually, because when you work with, for instance, laboratory animals, the environment and the setup are always the same. Even the color of the animals are always the same. So you can use some automated tools to track analyzes video from the videos, but when you record something like we get, you have to do it manually. Therefore, it takes longer. But since we are also doing like a different groups, we also need to check the inter-rater reliability between the raters. So it's a lot of work, but we are very happy that we have many data points.
Yeah, the project got a lot of attention, especially in Germany, right? When I was Googling just cat study, but the German term Katzenstudie, it directly pointed me to your study. I didn't even have to add Bochum or anything.
Yep. We did not expect that. So this was really I was really surprised because and it wasn't like really planned like such a big study or so. I think we hoped like to get like 100 registered cat out of each country or something like that, and it was basically by chance. So as Sevim mentioned, we have had a publication before, and so we were in contact with our PR department about that study, and then my student who was involved in the study came to me and said, oh, there's like a homepage of the university where you can post citizen science projects. And I just learned that like the PR department is also responsible for this site. So do you think it makes sense to contact the person I had previously been in contact about the other study, about the new study? And I was like, oh yeah, great, sure. And then he later came and said like she was interested, and she was like, oh, maybe we can even have like a short press release. And he asked like, oh, should I just give my contact information? And I think this was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before I left for summer vacation. I was like, oh yeah, perfect, just give your phone number. I think this was my biggest mistake, because I thought like there's 1 or 2 people who might call. It's fine if they call my PhD student, and I'm kind of like about to prepare for my summer vacation anyways. And then like the first day, when the press release got out, like he came to my office like every 5 minutes and was like, now like I got a call from like I think a radio station, and I think there was something with like kids involved, where it was like, could you do this? And a third thing. And then even when I left at night, like he called again saying like there was another call. So we realized, okay, it might be a bit bigger. And then in the next morning, when I came to the office, he's like, okay, someone from like TV will come in like 2 hours, but I don't feel comfortable when you do it. And then it really exploded. It was really crazy. Like for the 2 weeks, we got like, I know that there was like, I was doing interviews in my office while he was doing interviews in the other office. And at some point, we really had to sit together with all our collaboration partners and decide, okay, what we're gonna do? Where do we say like, no, this is like over our capacities, or with some even like, where do we feel comfortable with, or where would we say like, maybe this is not a good decision? And I would not have thought that this gets so big. And even now, like, so as with you, so of course it's not as crazy as it was in summer, but still like every month we get 1 or 2 like contact where they ask for like the podcast, or I think the other day my student told me that like they are recording like a general kids TV show about cats, but he was asked to read the script and edit if he thinks something should be added, and things like that. So it's really nice. Yeah, and Sevim was on Italian TV a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, but it was about our cat sleeping paper. Yes, it was an interesting experience. And if you are a scientist, you can find yourself suddenly on a national TV. Yeah, but we are very happy because I think it's really connect people to science, because especially for kids, not only for kids, but especially for kids, it's very nice that they see the results of the scientific projects in an interesting way. But of course, we didn't do it to get that much attention, but it was also somehow consequences, and we were also all surprised. But then I realized that if you are doing something with cats, it is like really the cat owners really want to know a lot about their cats, and they're very keen to participate the studies, which is very good, and it is very cooperative way for us. But also it's another clue, I think, for the people who wants to do citizen science. Maybe now they can confirm this observation, at least how I feel. I think you found a very good moment to share the press release, because it was a summertime and it was a holiday, and people were really checking the TV and other or social media. Then people had the time to do it, because for instance, when we released the press in Turkey, it was a very chaotic moment for like different political reasons, and like all the news were talking about this, and at that time it didn't get that much attention, for instance. So I think it's also very important to choose the time when you want to announced the study.
Absolutely. And he also didn't realize, I think it was like the press release was like 10 days or 2 weeks before the International Cat Day, which I wasn't even aware that existed. But then suddenly
I
people
knew
were
that.
like,
I
yeah,
knew
we made
that.
a special for the Cat Day. I'm like, okay.
It was quite funny because I also heard of the project in I think 3 of my podcasts, of the podcasts I'm listening to, and then one of them it was like at the end of the episode they were like, okay, that were the bad news of yesterday or today. Here's the good news: they are doing a cat study. So
Yeah, because there are many topics underexplored with cats, because cats are living with us for thousands of years, but we still don't really know how they perceive the world, how they think, because it's always the mystery with cats, right? They are very sometimes independent, and they're like a queens or kings at home, and they're also acting like our owners sometimes. So of course it gets a lot of attention, and also people wants to know. We are all also curious about it.
yeah, maybe getting back to cat behavior here, what could you maybe just um, tell us what cat behaviors you're focusing on in your research? So you've already touched on sleep, pause. Is there anything else you are focusing on?
In our city science project, we are also interested in the tail positioning, because tail is very important for the communication, both in interspecies and species. So, for instance, with dogs, we know a little bit about the tail wagging when, depending on the emotional context, you can see sometimes they wag their tails on the right more or the left more. But with cats, it's just underexplored at all, and we don't know that much. And also, not only for the tail positioning, but also tip of the tail, sometimes directing, especially when they are approaching people or when they are interacting people or when they are tense. You can easily see from their tails. Or for instance, I'm sure that all of you had this experience when you are cuddling your cats, when they are not super happy or when they get bored, you can see that their tails started to move, like, hey, I'm already annoyed, please leave me alone. So the tail is very, very important component of their body language. Therefore, we also want to see from the laterality approach, because laterality approach also can give us more understanding about how their brain works, like a brain working principle.
You've already mentioned laterality once or twice. Could you, for our listeners who are not into neuroscience, just really briefly explain what that means?
The laterality. Um, as maybe you already know, the brain is divided into two hemispheres, as right and left, and they are specialized for different functions. And we can also see this when we look at the behavior. We can also see, because the observational manifestation of the brain asymmetries, for instance, handedness in humans, and but in humans are a little bit different than the cats, because in humans 90% of the population use their right hand as the dominant hand. But in cats, we don't have this kind of population bias for paw preference, but rather they have individual preferences, being either left pawed or right pawed. So, like us, they also prefer to use one hand, one paw more dominantly. So basically, we can explain laterality like this, but laterality is also the main principle of how brain works, because it's from sensory, motor, and cognitive functions. It's like not only for the motor behavior, but we also see from different aspects of the cognition and sensory information, like how the brain works.
So in cats, the distribution of right or left pawedness is roughly like is equal proportion, so around 50-50.
Almost like a 54. We also did a meta-analysis about it, and they're almost same, like a 54 percentage of like left and right. um but it also brings some advantage, so to have, because we also showed that when they are lateralized, they are better at problem solving tests.
So there are some cats who have not a preferred. Do all cats have a favorite paw, or do some cats use both paws equally?
You can see both posts, but also it's like a contextual, depending on the context. But in general, they prefer to use one paw more, especially for the food reaching tests. But of course, it's like the brain plasticity and also environmental factors can change the asymmetries. In cats, we don't know that much how they change with the different environments, but we know, for instance, better with dogs when they are exposed to the acute or chronic stress. You can see that their laterality strength is reducing, and they are more tendency to have ambilaterality rather than being right or left.
Sevim, you mentioned that having a preference for paw shows better problem-solving abilities. Do you have any inkling on how the partners and the problem-solving abilities are connected?
Yeah, 2020, we actually studied this question. We wanted to see the link between the cognitive abilities, like a problem-solving ability, with the partners, since we already know in different species, like a parrots, chickens, um, having like a lateralized brain and having a like a strong paw preference or behavioral asymmetries bring some advantage in cognition, and we wanted to check this also with cats because cats are using their paws very manipulatively for both like during the prey and during play, and anything they do they always use their claws like a paws very manipulatively. And therefore we had like a two different problem solving tests. They need to open the lids to reach the food inside, and we tested 41 cats, and we saw that when they are more lateralized, they have like the individuals who showed stronger lateralization were more successful for opening and reaching the food. So it was the main finding of the results, and we also found that the cats which one used first their head to interact with the apparatus, testing apparatus, were less successful than the ones started manipulation with their paws. It was very interesting from the evolutionary perspective because we thought nowadays kids doesn't. I mean, they are still, of course, they don't. They are getting the food by their caregivers directly in a bowl, and they need to go and sniff and eat it. They don't need to use their paws to reach the food or get the food. Of course, the breed differences are very important, but we thought maybe during the domestication and afterwards, the ones which they don't use their paws that much and start with the head, they are less successful. So that was the second interesting finding of our study, but we found the strong link between um, paw preference and problem solving ability.
Is it that they are more trained in kind of doing tasks with a certain paw, or is it general problem solving abilities?
It was a general problem solving. It was a very good question because we avoid to train them for any task to observe their natural paw preferences. We gave them to the task apparatus and we directly record them until they use 50 paw preferences. And yeah, they didn't receive any training during or before, or they even didn't get any positive reinforcement during the, I mean, from human, they didn't get any positive reinforcement, but of course, they got it from the task. When they opened the lid, they got a positive reinforcement while reaching the food.
Interesting.
You already published a paper on laterality and sleep behavior, right?
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, there was a finding about the head position. Could you maybe briefly go into what you looked at there and what you found out?
Yeah, for the cat sleeping behavior, we checked their not head position, but their like whole body position, like how they sleep on. Especially, we had like a different reference points, like the shoulders, because you can. It's kind of easy, but at the same time, it's very difficult to analyze the videos. But we use the YouTube as a source, because as we already said, the cat owners really like to record the videos of their cats and they like to upload, and you can publicly can find many videos, and we also go through more than 600 videos in general. Some of them were not useful at all, because when you use the keywords for cat sleeping, sometimes it doesn't appear really sleeping positions. But then we had like a different inclusion and exclusion criteria, and we had the three different raters. And then we had, for instance, 10 seconds sleeping duration, and even if they waked up by their owners or other reasons, if they continue to sleep or stand in the same position, we mark them as a valid point, and we found that 65% of the cats prefer to sleep on their left side. Yeah, that was the results, but maybe we can talk more about what does this exactly means.
Yes, please. Because I've also skimmed the video, and I think it was you assume that it's something about how fast they can react when danger comes, or can you maybe go
Yeah.
into that a bit?
Yeah, because if you go back to the laterality perspective, as I told you, the brain hemisphere is specialized for different things, and we know that right hemisphere is more specialized for the threat processing and threat detection, and for the unusual things in general. And what is really special for cats are sleeping 12 to 16 hours per day, and it is very important cycle of their life. And like not only cats, but in general, like when we or the cats are sleeping, they're at the vulnerable situation. And cats also really like to sleep on like elevated places to check the surroundings and to control the environment, what's going on, either for their predators or their prey, because they are also both predator and prey. Then we thought, because the population level asymmetry is in general needs to give you some advantage, why there are this kind of bias. And what we also thought, not during the sleeping, but when they wake up, they really need to see the environment clearly. And when they use their left visual field, because they are sleeping on the left, and can you imagine them when they open their eyes, they can use directly their left visual field. It means they can react to the environment faster. So then we thought it could be survival advantage, like it increased their survival ability rather than just like a random left sleeping bias.
I'm trying to visualize my cat sleeping right now.
Yeah, my cat is loafing. She's on the couch and it's just a loaf, so she's. But usually, when she's sleeping really deep, she's always curled up on her left shoulder. Usually, mostly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if always, but at least when she's sleeping deep enough to wake up meowing because she had a dream or something, I guess, that she was dreaming. Then she was always sleeping on her left. Because she had that yesterday, that she
good
woke up
point
and
for
was
us.
just. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also like imagining my cat sleeping. I also see him laying like this, like folded paws, and then the head tilted to the left. Yeah.
Did you, well, I don't know if you can answer this, but like sometimes my cat has, as Imogen just described, her head on her paws, but sometimes also curled underneath her paws. Did you also focus on that or investigate that, or did you not do anything on kind of having the, for example, eyes covered?
Yeah, it's actually a good question, because sleep position, not only for the directional, but we at the beginning of our analysis, we wanted to also do separate analysis for C-shaped sleeping or like a lying down, but lying down on the left, it's more like also the resting, and therefore we had a 10-second inclusion criteria to at least make sure that they are really sleeping. So since we didn't have enough data set for the different positioning, because cats are also changing so often, we couldn't investigate the differences. But of course, it would be very interesting, not only the directional, but how they can react faster while they are sleeping. But even sometimes when they sleep deeply, they are just neutral position and they don't care at all. But also don't forget they are not in that much danger anymore in our houses. But it's still, if evolutionary conserved, they might still use their right hemisphere more for this kind of situation, like instinctively. But it doesn't mean that they really use nowadays, because which kind of predator can come from down at home?
But the sample size is a good point. That's now that we had like more than 10,000 cats participating in the science citizen science project. We maybe should have asked for more information on the sleeping position, but with like aiming for like 100 cats per country. If then you divide that up by sex, maybe even age is an influence, and then the sample size would have been too short if we would have evaluated more than like just the left and right sleeping position.
Do you know if there is a difference between cats who are just in-home and outside? So in-house and outside?
No, it's also a very good point. We also wanted to mark them as outside sleeping and inside sleeping, but it was not possible from the videos, because sometimes the environment looks like outside, but it is just balcony or it is inside outside. And as Nadia said, we didn't have enough sample, at least from YouTube videos. But it would be also very nice to check when they sleep outside, how they are sleeping. Most probably they are more cautious or more careful, and when they sleep at home is like a safest place for them.
And this is exactly our reasoning for the citizen science project, that we liked what we could do with the YouTube videos, but we also learned that there's some restrictions that we have with the YouTube videos, as we don't know anything about the cats, and that's why we then started the citizen science project, to get more information about the cats and be able to ask questions like the exact one that you asked.
One question that came to my mind, since you talked about YouTube, do you or how did you handle AI videos? Because I know, especially on Instagram, AI videos of cats are just flooding Instagram. And sometimes, like, I would consider myself as quite okayish in spotting them, but they just get better and better. And I often struggle as well in noticing, okay, is that a real cat or is that an AI cat? How did you handle that issue?
A very good question. And we had like tons of discussions about that, especially now with follow-up projects. I feel it when we did the sleeping YouTube videos, it wasn't as much of a topic as it is now. And I can summarize our discussions that we had like about follow-up projects, where we said like we cannot make sure, like we cannot for 100% sure say that there are no AI videos. We have and we I think we even discussed about like tools where you can filter or where the tool will tell you, but it wasn't just as reliable that we would say we can make sure. So we, for now, follow-up projects, and I think this wasn't the case in the published study, when there sometimes are the logos of the AI, then of course we know and we can exclude. But if there are no logos, we cannot for 100% sure say there are no. So what we said is, if we for sure see or have evidence that is AI generated, of course we will delete it. But if we don't, we have to assume that it's a real video. But it's a very good point.
Yeah, and also we were very careful with the public. It's not a publication time, but when it was uploaded to the YouTube, because nowadays we are also super careful and we are like, oh, this might be maybe AI. Then when you look at the uploaded time in 2012, it cannot be, right? Because at the moment the tools are really developed, and if you see them from the 2024 2025, then you should be more careful. Therefore, we also, for the follow-up study, we also divided them as a separate files, and we all check for the logos, as Nadia mentioned, but we also use Gemini additionally for writing the script to ask also some possibilities, because for 95 percentage, it with the confidence it can give you like because it can reach the content of the videos, because of the YouTube and Gemini are comes from the same. So I hope that it's not a problem to share the names of the programs, but if you already share the YouTube, I think Gemini shouldn't be a problem as well. Then you can also, we also try to do as a double check. So we did our best for not having AI generated, or when we have any doubts like the images or videos, then we went to the username and check all the descriptions and the comments. Then if there are any certain evidence, then we excluded them.
Yeah.
That is a very good point, and these are all the things that you have to consider in your studies. Like, where does your data set come from? What does this all mean? And so I feel like it was still like YouTube was still a great tool, and it's fantastic to find out things like that. But at the same time, you have to consider, where does your video come from? Like, what obstacles could there be?
And I would assume also if a person posts videos of one cat over 5 years, then you can be quite sure that that's a real cat. But if a person posts videos of 1,000 cats each day, then it's more likely that there are quite a lot of, or account, not person, but an account, that there are a certain percentage of AI videos included there as well.
That's true, but these were exactly the discussions Sevim and I had. Like, how can you, like, if you assume that this is an AI video because this person has posted a lot of videos, I felt it's wrong to exclude it because we don't know for sure. And those were all the discussions. So how do we handle it? And then I felt the more that we thought about possibilities, the more not reliable did it get. Because if then you say, oh, I feel that this is an AI video, it's like, yeah, but then like our studies should always be reproducible. And if we have the feeling, or if we think this might be an AI video, this shouldn't be a valid criterion. And therefore we said we'd rather have AI videos in it, but we are open about it, and everybody knows this was the reasons how we excluded it, and without having this like, I have a feeling, or this looks like, or something like that. So this did bring us like to a lot of challenges, and yeah, considering like what is science, like how are we gonna publish, and just like, yeah, as long as we share what we don't know, it's fine also to don't know everything.
Did the citizen science aspect give you more certainty about the realness of your data? Like, did you encounter videos where you thought, okay, they might have been AI, or is the fact that you probably get multiple videos of the same cat reassuring?
I think so. So we did not yet, but as I said, we weren't able to really check all the videos. So far, we didn't encounter anything where we thought like this is clearly AI. And here I trust in people that they won't like make up like a name and like demographics of their cat and then just create an AI cat. So I think it's more reliable than YouTube, but again, like for sure, like we don't know for sure that all this is like real, and then it's like, then we would really need to bring them to the lab, and that's exactly the discussion about like what is the best approach, or how I think the best is approach if you really combine everything.
I think it's just interesting how science is also changing. Like, we do have more possibilities due to AI also, or due to technical advantages, than we had like 20, 30 years ago. But also, since everyone has access to certain tools, they can mess it up quite easily, if
Absolutely.
like, or at least get some data points into a data set which mess up the whole analysis in the end.
Yep.
If someone has listened to this episode is there maybe one or two sentence take-home message what they should remember about either cat cognition or citizen science or the whole bouquet of topics we talked about?
Well, I hope that a lot of people, maybe also not working as scientists, listened, and for them, like, join citizen science projects. So it's very interesting. You learn a lot, but it's also very, very helpful for us scientists, as you've seen with our cats. Um, yeah, and then with the cats, maybe, yeah, I learned, because like this is not my main research with the cats. I learned a lot about cats and new things, and I hope the people who listened also could learn new things about cats in general, or even like when looking at their cats, notice things that we talk about it.
Since we started as Cognitive Science podcast, we always ask our guests in the end of what role cognition plays in their research. Could you maybe give us a short answer on that?
Cognition is a very important component because brain asymmetries are one of the core features of cognition. In my research, I would also like to go deeper into cognition, especially social cognition. Therefore, we include different animal species in our research. For example, in my new project, we compare face perception in wolves and dogs to understand the effect of domestication on social cognition.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
It was really interesting and a real pleasure.
Thanks a lot. I had a lot of fun too.
This was Science. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we would love to have your feedback. You can rate our podcast and give us feedback on our Instagram account. Have a great week, and you'll hear from us again in 2 weeks. This episode was hosted by Imogen Hüsing and Elisa Palme. Produced by Imogen Hüsing, Clara Kühne, Sophie Kühne, Sönke Lülf, and Elisa Palme. The music is from Jan-Luca Schröder, and the logo is from Annika Richter.